I had a lot of experiences with friends and even in our home where my kids were seeing things they were uncomfortable with, and they would come talk to me and say, "Is this okay?" And I realized, it wasn't anything extreme like I would really call true heavy pornography, but enough that I was kind of unsettled. And I had a friend whose son was on a sports team, 10 years old, and somebody had a phone and they were passing around true pornography for a 10-year-old with a bunch of boys in a locker room, and it just broke my heart, and I thought, I need to do something about this. I need to talk to my kids and prepare them, because I can't hide them from it. I have to prepare them.
A very close family friend came to us, and her 8-year-old daughter had been viewing pornography regularly, unbeknownst to them. And she had just had a conversation with her children about where babies come from. And her 8-year-old daughter very innocently went and sought out more information. And from that point on, was exposed to horrific images of pornography that she then began viewing on a daily basis before her parents found out. It took about 3 months before her parents found out that she'd been exposed and had been viewing this. And so my girlfriend called me, devastated about what her child had been viewing and their experience. And at that point we knew this was absolutely a conversation we had to have. We anticipated it was something we would be addressing with our kids, but certainly not at this point. We didn't feel. And this brought it to our attention immediately, where we knew we have to talk to our kids right now. There is no time to wait.
When my oldest son was in first grade, one of his good friends went to McDonald's with a babysitter, and he went in the men's bathroom alone, and there was a man in there doing inappropriate things. And so his parents approached us and said, "Look, this is what happened to our son. He might mention it to your son, and so we just wanted you to be prepared." And that really surprised us at first grade, that we had to start talking about sexual things.
I did not anticipate we would be having this conversation with our kids this early. So when you're looking at young children, how do you provide a context to talk with them about pornography when at this age, my 5-year-old especially had absolutely no context for sex, for any discussion about anything related to this topic. We were completely overwhelmed, had no real clue about how we were going to sit down and start this discussion. And that was frightening. It was because there was this sense of urgency. I felt like if this could happen to this child who was in a very responsible, well-protected home, this could happen to my children at any time. There's a sense of urgency. We need to have this discussion, and how do we go about doing that in a way that's going to be effective and not frighten them and yet get them the information they need to have to protect themselves.
When it comes to talking to young children, in our mind we're saying, gosh, they're so young. But we realized that, when I grew up, the issue of pornography, the issues were real, but you didn't see it and you didn't deal with it until you were older. If we don't talk to our children before they get to be 10, 11, it's going to be too late. The world and their friends are going to educate them about it in a way that we don't want, because it will be a hands-on, and then we'll be in the reactive mode rather than the proactive mode.
I think if you take the opportunity to warn your children early about pornography, then they have tools already that they can use to avoid it, to, when they do see it, to, stop looking at it, those kind of things, and to talk to somebody about it. They'll have skills at a young age because they are going to come across it somewhere, somehow.
I think the main benefits of early warning is that they have a plan. I think my kids, I don't want them to be scared of the world, but I want them to be prepared for it. And I think the best way to prepare them is to tell them what's there, openly, honestly, in a way that they can understand, and say, but I'm also going to give you the tools. You don't have to be scared. I'm going to give you the tools, and you're going to be okay, but I want you to know what's there.
After we had read the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures book, I think we're on our second week of reading the book. I was getting my daughters ready for bed, and my oldest daughter said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." And she said that our neighbor, who is her age, had shown my two daughters pornography, and they had gotten into my car, and I said, what was the neighbor showing you on her phone? And I didn't know at that time to be alarmed at cell phones yet. And they just said they had been watching a My Little Pony video. They looked at each other and they lied to me because they knew they had seen something bad, but they did not know how to tell me. So, reading this book and introducing it to them in a way that they were comfortable, they fessed up, and they told me it had probably been 8 months before that they had seen very illicit pornography. I'm so grateful that we had this book to introduce pornography and the dangers of it, because they probably still wouldn't have told me.
My initial conversations with my kids, I don't think I was prepared initially. And so I would just kind of say, oh yeah, don't look at that, or that's not a good thing. And then I had to regroup and we sat down, read them the book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And it opened up a whole dialogue. And I felt like it really was a way to introduce it to them where they weren't scared, it wasn't uncomfortable, and it was a way that they could understand it, but it really made them feel empowered and like, okay, I can do this.
If you can give them tools to use when they come across pornography, then that's a benefit to them. If you can talk to them about pornography in a calm way, then that's a benefit to them. If you can open the conversation from parent to child about pornography, then that's a benefit. Hopefully they'll be coming to you and talking to you as their parent about these things that come up. And I think it just makes them stronger, gives them things that they can understand that's not right, and I know why it's not right, and I'm not going to do that.
When we first sat down, I mean, we were almost to the point of agonized over how are we going to do this? This is so stressful. What are we going to say? And once we got in and started talking,
I felt such relief because I didn't know how to start the conversation, but once it was opened, it was an easy conversation, and now we have the conversation regularly, and it's not uncomfortable for them, it's not uncomfortable for us, and we have that open communication. And I feel relieved, and knowing that my kids know what to do, and I think we have starting that defense against pornography.
The next time we went to talk about pornography with our children, it was much easier. And so it's just a matter of you got to take that first step, and it's hard, but our kids are worth it.
I have worked with children for years. I have a master's degree in social work. I had worked with children in a clinical setting, working with every variety of issues. And I did not feel prepared to have this discussion with my children. And I had worked with children that had been exposed to pornography, but very much in kind of a situation where they were being groomed by a predator. I had not been in a situation where a child had been so violated, and where was the predator? The predator was on their computer screen. The predator was on a handheld device that she had access to every day coming home from school. And that was something I was not prepared to deal with. I did not know how to have that conversation with my own children, and that was frightening to me. We were so looking for something in terms of addressing this issue with our children, and how are we going to protect our own children. And here this neighbor walks in and says that she's writing a book for children on how to protect your children from the dangers of pornography. It was truly an answer to prayers. And within 5 minutes of sitting down to read the book with our oldest child, at the time he was 8, it was like this weight was just lifted. We were having an open discussion about a topic that a week before I could hardly say the word out loud, let alone sit down and think about talking to my children, about pornography. And it was an answer to our prayers. We were able to sit down and talk with our kids and read this book to them, and they were asking questions, and it was as comfortable as any other topic we'd ever addressed with our children.
When it talked about addictions, we also brought in, video games can be addictions, and all these other things, playing on the iPad or all these things, and
drugs and alcohol.
So it just made it more open for not just pornography, but other things.
When we read Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, I thought it was really beneficial for our family because it discusses all sorts of addictions. It doesn't just apply to pornography, even though that would be the main point of it, but it talks about the brain and how addictions to whether it be pornography or substance abuse or anything of that nature, why it can happen and why it's hard to break.
The portions of the book that were the most impactful were definitely the portions relating to the Can-Do plan for my family. It was a great way to, all of it was good, it was a great way to kind of introduce the concepts of what pornography is, but when it came to, okay, what are we going to do about it? Because we'd already had some kind of minor discussions about that, but when it came to what are we going to do about it, I had never had a plan before of, okay, you can do this, but if you run into this, this is how you handle it. And so that was definitely the portion of the book that was the most useful to me as a parent, and I think the most effective for my kids, because I didn't want them to be scared about the world or internet or technology. I don't want to make them be afraid, but I want them to have confidence that, okay, if something happens, I can handle it. But also to have awareness of there's a reason why I've been telling you be careful on the internet. And it's not the boogeyman, but this is what it is. It's a real thing, and you just need to be careful and have a plan.
The most impactful part of the book for my children was the Can-Do plan. Recognizing that there were steps that they could take to protect themselves. I could sense a little bit of anxiety. This was a new topic that we had not discussed with them, and you could tell it was kind of like, wait a minute, why haven't we heard about this before? There are pictures that could be bad for my brain. So you could sense that little bit of anxiety, and then you could see as the book unfolds, as we're talking about, don't worry. Just like every other topic that mom and dad sat down to talk to you about and protect you, there's a plan. We're here. The whole reason we're having this discussion is to keep you safe. And you could see that sense of relief. You could see them feeling empowered. You could see the light bulb going off and them understanding, okay, this is something I can do. I now know how to protect myself. And that, again, that discussion was very interactive. They were giving ideas, and I know if I'm at a friend's house and this happens, I know the code word that we'll use when I need to call you, and I have a situation that I want to have you help me get out of. And so it was very much, I would say, probably their favorite part of the book, knowing that they're empowered. They have something they can do to help keep themselves safe.
I'm a mother of 4 boys. I just think you really have to start talking about it. My husband does monthly interviews with my boys, and he asks them what they've been doing, if they know to stay away from it, and I really think that helps keep the communication open, and it reminds them every month to make good choices, because we know when you avoid it, it becomes this deep, dark thing, and it's just will go for years.
If I could give any parent advice about talking to their children about pornography, and this is as a professional that has worked with children, and as a mother, I think more importantly as a mother, it is never too early to start talking to your children. I certainly did not believe I would need to have this conversation at 8 and 5, and that was 5 years ago. I now have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. I did not think that conversation was relevant then, and technology is moving faster than we can keep up with. It is absolutely a conversation that we need to have with our children, and the earlier, the better. The earlier we start, the more comfortable they are. My children, today my 13-year-old is extremely comfortable, and this is a topic, especially as our kids approach their teen years, you think, how are we going to talk to them? When you start, when they're little, there is no context for them yet. We create that context, and we create it in an environment that's safe, and it's something they can talk to us about openly, and there isn't that hesitation. They talk about it, and it's very comfortable. So please start with your children young, and know that even if we can keep our own children safe in our home, the dangers are out there. In our society today, everyone is walking around with a handheld device of some type, and that's a pathway to pornography. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be having this discussion with our children. We really don't have a choice.
For other parents out there who are nervous about talking to their children about pornography, I would say I'm there with you. I understand, because that's how I felt. I procrastinated for quite a bit. I knew I needed to have that talk, and I kept putting it off, and little things would trickle in, and I'd try and kind of address them as they came up, and I realized we need to have a talk. And so we did, and I was so surprised at how easy it was, if it's done the right way. It wasn't awkward, and if you take it step by step, you can do it. It's really not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's more, I think, our generation it's not something we grew up talking about, so it's different for us to try to talk to our children about it, but we have to, and it's not that bad. My kids took it really well, and I feel like they understand, and we need to do it.
The bottom line is, you can either talk about pornography when they're 5, 6, 8, and help them be prepared to deal with it, or you can find it on their phone when they're 16 and are struggling to overcome dealing with the effects of pornography.
Don't be afraid to talk about it with your kids. Unfortunately, a lot of kids will come across it before we as parents even know it. So I think anytime a parent has an opportunity to talk about it with their children, don't be afraid. Take that chance. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures has been an awesome tool for our family to open that conversation, and then something that we can go back to. As a parent, if you have something like that in your home that your kids can look at on their own, I think those are excellent tools for a parent. And I don't think it's ever too young to start with your children to talk about this topic with them.